Hello student, myself Sanat Kumar Swai, and we'll be discussing about the cognitive framework in organizational behavior in this class. Previous class we had discussed about various frameworks including a behavioristic framework and various other frameworks in organizational behavior. So in this class we will be discussing about cognitive framework in organizational. What is cognitive? What do you mean by cognitive? Cognitive is the way we behave, an individual behave, it perceives. So it is something related to the brain mapping. Okay. So in organizational behavior, the cognitive framework, it refers to the various kinds of theoretical approach, which focuses on understanding how an individual behave, how an individual think, how an individual perceives various kinds of information, and how it processes the information which he or she perceives or get input within any organization. Okay. Next is it also try to explore the various aspects of the cognition and its impact on in any organizational context. So we'll be going through various slides to understand how the cognitive framework influences the uh, uh, organizational behavior in any organizational setting. Okay. So information processing. Now, what do you mean by information processing? Um, you see, as an individual, we multiple information starts. There's a multiple flow of information um, in our brain. Okay. We get a lot of informations from a lot of sources. Okay. So how we are going to gather those information, how we are going to store that information, and how we are going to process that information and retrieve those information, that is important. So this the framework, the cognitive framework in any kind of organizational setting, it emphasizes that how the employees are going to process this information by gathering, storing, retrieving, and processing the information. This also includes that how the employees, how the individual, they are going to perceive and interpret the information, and how that is going to help them in many kind of decision making process. So that is all about the information processing, how we are going to process the information which you are going to get, and how that is going to help us in the decision making process. Okay. Perception. Now, what do you mean by perception? Perceive. Perceptions comes from the word perceive. How we are going to perceive? Okay. Perception, it plays a significant role in how a particular individual is interpreting its surrounding and making sense of the organizational event. So you see a lot of events are going on each and every day, and how we are going to interpret those events in a structured way. We are going to create our own perception based on the events happening in our day-to-day life in the organizational setting. So that creates a perception. Now, cognitive framework, what does it does? It explores the perpetual process which is going to affect the individual's understanding of its work environment, and subsequently how it is going to affect their behavior. So this is all about perception, how a person perceives. So if you see the slide, you will see that what do you mean by perception? It is the process of receiving information. How do we receive information from the various sources? Which is on a day-to-day basis, particularly in an organizational setting. Okay. So the literal meaning of perception, which comes from the Latin word perceptio. Perceptio means a sensory information in order to represent and understand the environment around us. What is happening in the environment around us, it's known as perception, and how we are going to use those happenings in our surrounding, and we process that information related to those happenings, and we make certain structured decisions, and that is going to help in our decision making process. That is known as perception. Okay. Learning and memory. Again, what do you mean by learning and memory? It's something related to our mind, brain, how we are going to learn something and how we are going to memorize it, and how it is going to help us in our problem solving attitude, how it is going to impact the decision making process. So the cognitive framework, it examines how learning processes occurs within any organization, how the learning processes is happening in any organization. So you see a lot of new skills are being put into force. Lot of new knowledge is being given to is being provided to the employees, and as well as the retention and retrieval of the information. So how the employee is going to retrieve and retain those information is also part of the learning and memory process. So there are a lot of new knowledge and skills being provided on a day-to-day basis. So an employee has to have that understanding of retention of those information, and how it is going to retrieve those information as and when required. So that is all about learning and memory processes. It also considers that how organization also uses the learning and memory theory to um, understand the decision making processes and the problem solving attitude of any organization. When there is any kind of decision making process, how we are going to use the learning and memory to make certain focused decision and problem solving attitude. Now, problem solving and decision making, the same thing, that uh, you see, once we have received certain information and we are able to retrieve those information, we are able to process those information that can help us in our decision making process and any kind of problem solving processes. So the cognitive framework in any individual, okay, it helps that particular individual with an approach solving, organizational approach, by solving and decision making task. Okay, this also includes studying cognitive biases, heuristic, and rational decision making processes. Okay. Now, process of decision making, if you go through the slide, you will see that the first thing is that we need to define the problem. What is the problem? We have to have a close understanding of the defining the problem. We should have a problem analysis. We have to analyze the problem. Okay, what is the problem all about? We have to generate possible solutions, proper solutions, possible solutions should be generated. Those solutions should be analyzed. Okay, proper analysis and analyzing of the solution is important. Next, selecting the best solution and then planning for the next course of action. Okay, so we have to select the best possible solution, and then we have to plan the next course of action, what we need to do about the problem, on how we are going to use the decision making process. Okay. Social cognition. Okay. So what do you mean by social cognition? See, as because while working in a particular organization, that is something, it's a group work. You're working in a group setting. So how we are going to interact, how we are going to perceive others in our workplace, it all refers to the social cognition. Social cognition is how an individual is going to perceive certain information, and how an individual is going to interact with other in his or her workplace is known as social cognition. So this includes understanding various kinds of concepts like social perception, attribution, and the impact of interpersonal relationship. there has to be a certain interpersonal relationship in the workplace on cognition and behavior. Motivation and goal setting. In earlier class, we discussed about motivation, how motivation theories and motivation factor is important in increasing the better performance of an employee. How goal setting is also an important aspect in understanding the organizational behavior of a particular individual. How the goal setting can help the individual in performing better than his or her peers. So the cognitive framework explores various how the individuals are going to set their goals, and how we're gonna evaluate their progresses, and how an individual is going to stay motivated within the organization. So this involves various cognitive processes like self-efficacy, self-efficacy and expectancy. You know, there has to be certain efficiency, okay, expectancy, certain efficiency, certain expectancy, and which is going to influence any individual behavior while motivating in any certain task, while performing a certain task, and while giving the best performance of an particular. So this is the goal setting theory of motivation. You see, one is goal directed, one is performance, intrinsic reward, satisfaction, and extrinsic reward. Okay, so you see, goal directed, one is goal difficulty, goal acceptance, goal specificity, and goal commitment. So when there is a goal setting for a particular individual, so there has to be goal difficulty. What is the difficulty level of that particular goal? Acceptance, whether the particular individual is going to accept that particular goal, and whether any specific specificity has been given to that particular goal, and should be a goal commitment to that particular goal directed effort. Next, performance. Performance, whether there is any organizational support being given to that individual, and whether there is individual abilities and traits are being monitored to do that particular task on. Next comes the reward. Okay. What do you mean by intrinsic reward and extrinsic reward? Okay, it's something related to the various kinds of perks, various kinds of salary, various kinds of motivational rewards, and subsequently that is going to lead to a proper job satisfaction. So this is all about the goal setting theory of motivation. Now, emotions and emotional intelligence. What do you mean by emotion? Emotions plays a very important role in understanding in the behavioral setting of any individual. Okay. So why do we need to understand the emotions, and how do the role of emotion plays an important role in understanding the organizational behavior? Because see, individual expresses emotions as a human being. Everybody expresses our emotions, and which also affect the decision making processes. It also affect the individual performance, subsequently the group performance in the workplace. Okay. So emotions and emotional intelligence plays an important role, which is going to affect the relationship and the work performance any for a particular individual, or that can be a group dynamics in work. Okay. Now, what is emotion? Emotion, what do you mean by emotion? Emotion means, see, that is some physiological change. When there's a physiological change, then that can be termed as an emotion. When you are showing certain physiological change in your workplace, and that can be stated as, and that's a mental state. Emotion is a mental state. it can be certain disturbances or certain agitations which is going on in your, that how what happens due to that agitations, or what happens due to that mental agitation disturbances, is going to affect your workplace. That's directly going to affect your work and subsequently your performance. Now, what is intelligence? What do you mean by intelligence? Intelligence means your ability to understand something, or to deal with a particular situation, um, okay, and how you are going to cope up with that particular situation, um, um, and how an individual learns from his or her experience and cope up with the demand of the various issues which are being faced on a regular basis at your workplace. This is all about intelligence. Okay. Attention and focus. How attentive we are at our workplace, how focused we are at our work. Also plays an important factor in the cognitive framework. Okay, so the cognitive framework, what it does, it investigates that how an individual is putting his or her attention and available cognitive resources to various kinds of tasks and various kinds of stimuli in the place. See, while working, you will have a lot of different kinds of stimuli which are going to put you at which can be positive stimulus and which can be negative stimulus at your workplace. So how we are going to adapt to those kind of stimuli, how we are going to understand those put our attention and various kinds of cognitive resources is important in the cognitive framework. Okay. So these also can impact our productivity, our performance, and the decision making processes in our workplace. Okay. Communication and language. See, communication and language is very important. Okay. If there is no effective communication, that is going to lead to various kinds of barriers that can be termed as a barrier in the uh, the best performance, while an individual is unable to put his or her best um, performance, owing to poor communication and poor languages at the workplace. So these is what most of the organizations are doing, that they are putting a lot of emphasis on communication and languages. Um, earlier earlier the mode of instruction or the mode of communication was English, or maybe certain other languages. But these days you see, it doesn't matter whichever language you speak, that should be understandable and that should be communicable. You are able to communicate freely and openly in your desired language. That is important. So the cognitive framework, it also explores how languages and communication processes influence the organizational behavior. See, uh, you know, when you are working for a particular organization, language plays a very important role. Okay? Um, it also shapes the culture of the organizations you are working for. Okay? So these days, what the managers they do, that they multifaceted organizational culture. It's not like a particular approach, multifaceted. Okay? So people from mixed background, people from various backgrounds, from various cultures have been put together, so that there's a mixture of and proper communication. A lot of emphasis is been given to communication. There should be proper communication. There should not be any kind of communication gap. The gap should not be there among the colleagues, among the higher authority, among the lower subordinate staff. So the information should flow freely. There should not be any kind of communication barriers in any organization. So that also plays a very important role, and it subsequently shapes the organizational culture of a particular organization. So language matters. Words shape action. So in earlier theories, you will see that language doesn't matter, but uh, today language does matter. Language does matter, and our words shapes our action. The words which we use these days, that is going to shape our future action. Now, cultural and cross-cultural consideration. What do you mean by cultural and cross-cultural consideration? Why do we focus a lot more on culture? Why it is so important that a lot of studies are being on, particularly on in the organizational behavior, culture is given as of utmost importance. Culture is such a phenomenon that if you're not going to study culture, if you're not going to study understand culture, then it can influence the cognitive processes and the organizational behavior within the organization. We have to understand the culture and the cross-cultural differences. Okay. While the MNCs working in multiple places, multiple continents, multiple countries, multiple geographical locations, they can have various kinds of cultural differences, cross-cultural differences, and that has to be met, that has to be addressed to. So without understanding the culture, without understanding the what are the cross-cultural differences, definitely we are not able to, we are not going to understand the cognitive processes and the organizational behavior within any organization. So these are very important aspects which every organization is going to put important emphasis on. Okay. So in summary, okay. So in the last slide, we will understand that how the cognitive framework, any kind of organization, it understands the role of cognitive processes in shaping an individual or any group behavior in any workplace. So the cognitive framework is important to understand the individual or group behavior in any kind of organizations, in workplace. So with this framework, with the cognitive framework, it also understands that how an individual is going to perceive certain information, how an individual is going to think, how an individual is going to process those information. Okay, and it can gain the various researchers and practitioners of organizational behavior theories. They can gain an insight into the various kinds of aspects in organizational skills, such as making decision making processes and problem solving issues, okay, and also motivational factors. So this knowledge can be applied to improve the organizational effectiveness and create an harmonious and work harmonious work environment in any particular. So the cognitive framework, one of the few frameworks to understand the organizational behavior in organizational setting, is very important to understand why a person is thinking in a particular way, why a person is going to behave in a particular way, and understanding the cognitive framework help the managers of a particular organization to come to a conclusion in the decision making processes in the problem solving. So thank you very much. With this, we have completed um, the cognitive framework in organizational behavior in any organizational setting. Thank you very much. Thank you.